I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Every now and then, Tom and I like to review stuff that we might not have heard of before. Just for fun, because there's a lot of fun. Like when you just start reviewing the same bands that you've known for years and stuff like that, it gets kind of monotonous after a while. Like part of the fun is learning all the new music that's out there.
There's a lot of it.
There's a ton of it. I mean, this is like a music euphoria right now. I think technology is just at a point where we're getting all this great new music. And it's kind of hard to dissect it all and to really take it all in and be able to listen to everything. I don't think we can do that. That's why we need your help. So tell us, if you guys have albums from 2013 you want us to review, let us know. And the more requests we get for an album, the more we're going to look at it. But we definitely preview a lot of albums, especially this guy right here. One of the albums that we previewed, liked, and thought would make for a really good review was by a band called Widowspeak or Widowspeak. We don't really know.
Tell us!
Tell us. It's just Widowspeak.
That's a good kind of ambiguous way.
Widowspeak.
Widowspeak. You kind of just have to.
You have to say it fast.
Yeah, you have to.
If only we had an almanac to help us pronounce it.
That's not what almanacs are for.
Oh no.
Okay.
But that is what this album is called. Now this is the band's second album. It came out a couple years ago. I don't know a lot about this band. Right. The first one came out a couple years ago. This one obviously just came out in 2013. Sound is kind of like Sharon Van Etten, Y Oak, Marissa Nadler, some other female.
Agree with that.
There's a female vocalist. Kind of, how would you describe the female vocalist?
Even like Cults, I would say. And yeah, actually, most of the reason I brought that up is because the whole guy-girl duo vibe from it. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
The vocals. I mean, the vocals are a key point to this.
They're kind of dry and kind of airy. Yes. They almost focus more on atmosphere, bringing that atmosphere. I really actually think most of the melody on this album comes from the guitar. Yes. Lots of great instrumental tracks laid down on this album, and the vocals play a very different role for that reason. And for that reason, it was also a little hard for me to get into. I have trouble with that, mostly just because they're so low-key the whole time. I even said about the terrific release from Fiona Apple last year that was at the top of like everyone's list. The thing that was holding it back for me as a listener was just that I never felt like she really took it to 10. She never really brought the intensity all the way. I even said that about PJ Harvey's Let England Shake, which I freaking love. This is another album kind of like that. That just, it doesn't cater quite to my taste in that regard, but I don't think it'll stop a lot of people from really liking it.
It definitely has like a very large folk rock appeal to it.
Definitely.
And you're dead on with the vocals kind of being more atmospheric and kind of airy in tone and kind of in the background, right? They don't put the vocals at the forefront of the mix, which is something that I definitely appreciate because we have way too much music right now that's all about the vocals like turned up all the way and then everything else except for the drums and beats are like in the background. This is not like that at all. It's definitely a very full band balanced sound. And they have this nice texture over all of the instrumentation. And it allows these really cool guitar melodies to kind of just seep out. And so the mixture is actually really nice. You get a very appealing sound. However, a whole album of this same sort of you know, kind of presentation gets a little taxing. And I gotta say that I definitely favored the tracks kind of on the first half of this album. I felt like that's where a lot of the really good guitar melodies are. And then, you know, the back half kind of doesn't have the same charm. I think part of this is due just to the fact of how they structured the songs. This sound is a very specific sound. You can tell they were going for something extremely specific, and they didn't really ever branch out from that. So they made their point in the first few tracks. They showed that they could put it into you know, song form and record it and make a really good solid effort at it. But then they never did anything else, and so it gets kind of taxing after a while.
And when the intensity and volume never really goes above a 6 or a 7, then that squashes your potential for dynamic contrast and naturally makes the album going to sound a little bit more same track by track. Which one track that I actually ended up really liking, I don't know if you were too keen on this one, but was the shorter track Minnewaska. Because that was one of the only songs where they actually took it even down a notch, a little more quiet, a little more stripped down than they did on most of the tracks, and it focused on the vocals a little more. It actually had a really good vocal melody with some harmonies in the background. It almost had this kind of like 60s, 70s pop kind of vibe, only produced for more today, which actually in that way, some aspects of this album reminded me of like a darker, more modern indie like Fleetwood Mac.
That's a good point.
You know, you go listen to like Fleetwood Mac's Self-Titled or Rumors, and some of the sounds were kind of reminiscent of that. But But one thing I really did like about this album, I have to tip my hat to them on, is from an albumization standpoint, I think it's really cool that the title track is like a 40-second transitional track.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool, because to me, when I'm listening to an album, I always just psychologically, I know that I focus more on the title track, because artists do that for a reason.
Right.
They do that to pull out a track and make you focus on it more. That's just naturally how you're going to listen to it. So for them to name the album after a track that's just like a 40-second transitional track, makes that pop out a little more, gives it a little more meaning, and I think that's a really good thought.
Personally, I thought that the highlights on this album were, like I said, in the first half, but specifically the Dark Age definitely had a very big Sharon Van Etten vibe, and I felt like this whole album was in that vein. But I also really liked track 6, Ballad of the Golden Hour. I thought that these two tracks really showed how creative they were in their sound presentation, and were good examples of that sound we were talking about. Now, the only, like you mentioned, Minnewaska, and Storm King, the closer, also really showed that they can do other sounds. Now, if they had more variety on this album, like those two tracks, I feel like it would have had more of you know, a gripping moment to it, that you would feel like you could listen to this whole thing and not have it just kind of wash over you. They didn't do enough to grab that emotional warmth, and I think that a couple things that they could have done is just more dynamics, and then have more intensity in the vocals. I mean, really, there's just a couple minor problems on this one weighing it down. Personally, I like this album. I keep going back from thinking, there's some issues here that I want to clean up, and that I think it's good enough to give that solid rating. So I'm hovering right around a 70. I'm going to go 71.
I'm going to give it 70.
Okay, low 70s. This album, there's some things that could be better. However, it's a good sound, and it's a sound that I like, and I feel like it's well presented. Tom agrees. Guys, what do you think? Let us know what you thought of Almanac, and if you've heard more about Widowspeak or know how to pronounce it, please let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As I said at the beginning of the review, please let us know what you guys are listening to right now and want us to review from 2013. Let us know at our Facebook site and our Twitter site, because that's where we talk with you.
Yep.
I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VMTV, Moving Music Critique Forward.